The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the host and guest and do not reflect the opinions or policies of the station, its owners, or its advertisers. All content should be considered editorial in nature. Listener discretion is advised.
Recorded live. Cumberland County's smartest hour of talk radio. Welcome back to another edition of the Carolina Cabinet.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the host and guest and do not reflect the opinions or policies of the station, its owners, or its advertisers. All content should be considered editorial in nature. Listener discretion is advised.
Recorded live. Cumberland County's smartest hour of talk radio. Welcome back to another edition of the Carolina Cabinet.
Well, everybody, good afternoon again, and welcome to the Carolina Cabinet for the second act on Wednesday today, in studio with Mrs. Laura Musler and Mr. Don Brown.
Hello,
for
hello.
U.S. Senate. He's not Dan. He's Don.
Don.
Yes.
I wish I had Dan's money.
I've
written more books than he has. He's got a lot more money than me.
Oh yeah, Dan Brown. The
He's a book,
Angels and Demons, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Okay. So we just had a spirited discussion with Commissioner Glenn Adams for District 1 County Commission. He's been there for 12 years. We'll see if he makes it through his primary. He's got 5 or 6 opponents, which doesn't sound unfamiliar.
Well, I had
all.
one opponent, and then like on the Thursday before Christmas, I had about a dozen, it seems like, so what can you say?
Well,
take it in stride.
So how's your weeks looking like? It's early voting's begun last Thursday.
Yeah, right.
How much hair are you going to have left in the next week or so?
Well, that's a good question. We're running here, there, and everywhere, and really, the pace of our schedule hasn't increased that much because we're running everywhere anyway.
Mm-hmm.
We're very optimistic. Watley has undergone a huge media buy here. Cooper's not done that, but Watley has, and there's a reason for it. And not only that, he's got AFP out door knocking for him. AFP, of course, is a renowned anti-Trump organization out door knocking for Watley.
Americans for Prosperity.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It's a Koch brothers organization.
Okay.
So anyway, he's doing that for a reason. So we've got him on the run, and we're having a lot of fun with it. We're going to pull this thing off.
Okay. So what kind of things do you want to see that you see? What made you get into the race?
It was Tom Tillis. Well, listen, I ran for Congress, and some people say we lost this congressional race. Yeah, but we jumped into the congressional race on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and you learn a lot. When you jump into a race the holidays, and you've got a March 5th primary, you don't have a lot of runway. But we made a lot of friends, and actually, a lot of my opponent's supporters were coming to me and encouraged me to run against Tillis, and I thought they were crazy. And as you know, thank you very much. I think I shared this with you. I've done a lot of work with Hedseth in the past and worked for him for a couple of years. And thank you very much. By the way, I love the studio.
Thank you.
You've had me on before. It's the first time I've been in the studio. It's Jess said,
yeah. Last time was remote.
Come back anytime, man. This is impressive.
We like you in house.
But Tom Tillis had promised that he would, honor the president's nominees who came out of the Senate Jurisdictional Committee.
Right. And
Pete came out of the Armed Services Committee, and I know Pete, and he's a red-blooded American. He's the type of guy that's going to put enlisted guys and junior officers ahead of, political appointees in the Pentagon.
Sure.
And Tillis tried to torpedo the nomination, even though Pete had cleared the Senate Armed Services Committee, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And I still was not even planning to announce it, but I was having a kind of a private conversation with the mayor of Monroe, Robert Burns, who's endorsed us, and next thing you know, Robert puts it on the internet, and boom, the cat got out of the bag. And so it was really Tillis going after Hedseth that was the straw that broke the camel's back in that.
Okay. Well, and we see. Look at the U.S. Senate. That's like the Super Bowl for politics. That's the next step as president. So you guys are.
Wouldn't that be the Super Bowl?
The next. Hey,
I don't know.
This is like the playoffs.
Okay. All right. Maybe. All right.
Okay.
Go ahead.
It's all metaphorical at this point.
So anyway, Tom Tillis obstructing basically the president's plan to put good people in the right place.
And especially Hedseth, because I know the guy. Pete Hedseth and I worked for nearly 2 years to secure a presidential pardon for Clint Lawrence, who was an 82nd Airborne paratrooper here at Bragg for a while. And it was Pete that initiated that. Pete knew that I was a military author. I'd written the book on the shoot down of the Chinook helicopter in Afghanistan, Extortion 17, where we lost 17 members of SEAL Team 6, 30 Americans. the largest loss of life in the Afghan war. And Pete and I met, and we worked together when he was with Concerned Veterans for America. Went to Fox, and in 2017 there were two very high profile military cases that were on national news. One was a Navy SEAL named Eddie Gallagher, and another was a Green Beret major named Matt Goldstein, who were being prosecuted under Obama's rules of engagement for incidents in Afghanistan and Iraq. And Pete remembered. Now listen, Pete remembered that in 2013, Clint Lawrence had been railroaded into prosecution here at Bragg under Obama's rules of engagement and sentenced to 19 years at Leavenworth for murder. So Pete contacts me. And we worked together. Said, Don, I know you're a military writer. If you write the book on Lawrence and get it out, I'll get you all the national airtime you want on Fox, and we will make a pitch directly to the president for a pardon. And he did that, and we did, and by the grace of God only, President Trump signed a pardon for all three of those guys, November 15th, 2019. I'll never forget it. And Pete Hedgeff put his career on the line with Fox to do that for those guys.
Right.
And so when Tillis went after him, it really just something in me snapped.
Okay.
And this was never, ever on my radar.
Right.
But there's a silver line in every cloud. I get to meet Peter and Laura, and they're great patriots.
For what that's worth. Yeah.
Well, it's worth a lot to me. It is worth a lot to me, win, lose, or draw. We're going to win, but it is worth a lot to me because relationships mean more.
And, we recognize as voters and as we're party affiliated folks. I mean, we're involved with the local machine, I guess, but you show up. Well, that's one thing that separates from a lot of other candidates is that you show up.
Well, the most coveted words in the Constitution are "we the people," and I'm a U.S. Senate candidate. So what? I'm gonna level with you. I was in my hometown is Plymouth, North Carolina. Okay, and I love it. Of course, Washington County, my home county, is the poorest county in the state of North Carolina. Have I ever mentioned that to you, Laura? I don't know if I have.
No, you have not.
The poorest.
Where is Plymouth County?
It's Washington County. It's about 3 hours northeast of here. It's down. If you go to we call Washington, because I grew up in the area, the town of Washington, North Carolina, we call it Little Washington.
Okay.
And it's about Plymouth, 30 minutes north of Little Washington. And anyway, I was there. My sister still lives there. She was the postmaster in Bath, which is the oldest town in North Carolina. And there's a nice little coffee shop down the Roanoke River. And I was there one day, and there was a local guy running for town council of Plymouth, and I overheard him. And he had some pretty good ideas about bringing some business in. I went over and introduced myself and said, "Hey, these are some great ideas. Stick with it." He said, "Oh, you're running for the U.S. Senate. What I'm doing is not nearly as important." I said, "Stop that. What you're doing actually is more important than what I'm doing, because it is the local officials who are closest to the people and who are going to make decisions that are more immediately impactful. Yeah, the U.S. Senate may be a bigger office, but I believe in being with the people. And if by the grace of God we get elected, I'm planning to, I'm not interested in wine and cheese parties in Georgetown, sipping on champagne and snacking on Triscuits.
They have good wine and cheese.
I've been to Washington, and the offices are actually really small.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, listen, me too. I'll be looking to get out of there every weekend as much as I can.
Well, I think, and that's maybe to cue them to get back in their districts and see people. It's good to have our electeds near us.
Yeah, it is.
So Tillis was a motivation with his mistreatment of Pete Hegseth, who you had a good working relationship with. Those cases you mentioned, was it Obama era? And I know you can't really sum up these large cases, but I mean, did the Obama administration, was it just suppressing evidence, or was it just unfair?
Well, there was suppression of evidence in the Lawrence case, but let me back up just for a second. The rules of engagement in the war on terror sort of switched after Osama bin Laden was killed by Navy SEALs on May 1st on May Day of 2011. Really, and the rules were changed to favor the lives of the Taliban over Americans. For example, there's what I call the battlefield lawyer rule. And this is what got Clint Lawrence. I've got to identify you, Peter, as the enemy and prove that you're the enemy. And then you have to show me some sort of hostile act and hostile intent before I can defend myself. And so by the time that happens, especially with green on blue situations over there and with the Sharia problem, our guys are getting blown up. And so you can't shoot until you see the whites of their eyes, and there's no doubt. And you're in Clint Lawrence was in Kandahar province, which is the most kinetic. province of Afghanistan, the most dangerous. And in Lawrence's case, it turned out that what happened is there were 3 motorcycle riders charging the front of Lawrence's platoon. They were coming across a Great Burn in single file formation. Lawrence was 2/3 of the way back, did not even see the motorcycles. This was a year after we took bin Laden out. And by that time, Obama wanted to say Afghan in the lead. He was trying to teach the Afghan National Army to defend themselves. That flopped. But we actually had 4 Afghan National Army guys at the front of our very platoon. And so when this motorcycle comes along, they started firing first, the Afghans. Then Lawrence's guys say LT permission, open fire permission granted. We never recovered the bodies, never identified whether the bullets were Afghan or American. But at the time, we were running a top secret program in Afghanistan to identify. We had a DNA program there. Nobody knew about it. It was top secret. But most of our guys were getting maimed and killed by these landmines, these IEDs. And when McChrystal was in charge of the ISAF, we were discovering we were finding little snippets of blown up bombs, and there would be either fingerprints or blood. And so the Army went in and did a huge database. DNA database. And so we found that 2 of the 3 riders were Taliban bomb makers. That information was discovered after Lawrence was convicted. The team that I joined went to General Nicholson, who was the commander of the 82nd Airborne at the time, said, "Look, General, 2 of the 3 were Afghan bomb makers. There's a presumption this is a legal shot." Still wouldn't let him out.
Okay.
Do you want to turn to audience?
I do.
Okay.
So we have a question from the audience. Hello, Dwayne. What specific measurable policy outcomes will you deliver within your first Senate term that demonstrate principled Republican leadership while also producing tangible economic, national security, and constitutional benefits for the citizens you seek to represent?
Now you can breathe.
Well, first off, who asked me that question?
That's Dwayne.
Dwayne, my compliments to you. That is a very, it's a very good question. It's got a lot in there. We're running on several principles. We have a national emergency with a national debt. I'm the only U.S. Senate candidate saying anything about it. Whatley's saying nothing about any policies at all.
Is he saying anything? I mean, no offense to Mr. Whatley, but I have not seen him.
I've only seen his commercials.
He spent a lot on
and
commercials.
he talks a lot about Trump.
Trump. This is not a policy. He's spending a lot of commercials.
He's got a little bit of a bromance going on with Trump, I think. But
Cooper's not buying commercials right now. He's got nothing to worry about what he does. But listen, we got an emergency with national debt. I was going to speak in McDowell, in Asheville a couple months ago. Pulled out my clock there. Dwayne, I want you to go to this website. It's usdebtclock.org. Dwayne, go to that website. And what you'll see is the national debt of the United States exploding in front of our own eyes. And when I jumped in this race, it was in the 36 trillion range. It passed through 37 trillion, now to 38 trillion. And that's under a Republican Congress. Now, our Republican congressman will tell us we've cut spending, and to a degree we have, because the national debt, when I was going to Asheville, I checked for 1 minute, it increased. I was just sitting in the house waiting to go, increased $2 million in 1 minute. That's $120 million an hour, $2 billion a day, $37,000 a second. So Dwayne, think about it, $37,000 a second. The national debt is exploding. Now that's down from $55,000 a second under the Democrats, but it's still going to explode, and we will lose the dollar. And if we lose the dollar, we will fall like a rock. They're going to replace it with something called a central bank. So to answer your question, I'm leading with what I call a Deep State Reduction Act. So what would that do? That would require a reduction in 2/3 of all federal employees that are non-military within 10 years, and you could retire a lot of them out. Apply that to the debt. Then it will require a reduction an elimination of 2/3 of all federal agencies. Just get rid of them. I mean, it's not a matter of cutting spending. I believe I would like to see the DOGE cuts codified. Elon Musk recommended eliminating 300 of the 400 some agencies. So my Deep State Reduction Act is 2/3. That's less than what Elon wanted. But if the agency cannot be constitutionally supported, it's got to go. I mean, listen, we've had a Republican Congress for over a year. Trump wants the Department of Education gone. Pocahontas was angry the other day because Trump, by executive order, has eliminated at least 50% of Department of Education employees, but you still got the Department of Education. It was rammed down our throats by the Congress, Peter and Laura, during Jimmy Carter's last year in office. and only Congress can take it out. Why isn't Congress taking it out? So I'm
Yeah.
going to lead with that.
Well,
There are a
but
lot
see,
of other things as well, but we're going to lead with that.
Don, when we talk about Department of Education and eliminating it, the left, and look, we're in a Republican primary.
Right,
We
yeah,
need you to
right.
get through the primary, and then we can really make this more than academic. But, people say, oh, the Republicans are against education. No. We're against wasting money. What?
Because the scores have gone
Yeah,
down since we've
more
had
money, less
the
scores.
education department. Our scores have
That's right.
decreased steadily.
That's correct.
So, what is your specific measurable policy outcome?
Well, the first policy outcome will be I will push for a Deep State Reduction Act, which will require the reduction of 2/3 of all federal employees and 2/3 of all agencies. And we'll have a chop list items. That's number one.
Do you already have a list of chop list items?
Partially, not all. It's going to be a lot of fun. I got a text from a friend of mine who is one of us. I say one of us who believes like we do, and understands that we've got a problem. The United States Congress has abdicated its responsibility over the years by creating this monolithic deep state. And she went back to the Trump administration first to help eliminate USAID. You remember USAID? And then she says, Don, why do we still have the Office of Refugee Resettlement? Why are we still, funding that? So that will be on the list. But I can tell you, I want the IRS on that chop block list. I want the office I just mentioned on the chop block list, the Department of Education. I'd like to see FEMA on the chop block list. I think we can do a lot better. If you can't justify it constitutionally, it's got to go. So the Deep State Reduction Act is what I'll lead with. If you go, who is this that asked us?
Dwayne.
Follow up.
If you go to our website, which is brownfornc.com, you'll see a pretty extensive policies list with a lot of these specific policy proposals, which we probably won't have enough time because I know Laura and Peter have a 3:30 coming in. But we've gone into a lot of policy detail, more so than any other candidate. We lead with the Deep State Reduction Act and advocate for that.
Okay.
But that's not it. But I keep talking all day.
Right. Well, look, this is not a simple solution. I mean, it's
and realistically, Don, if he wins, is one vote. He has to bring along with him 50 other people, because 50 or at least 49, and then have the vice
have
president.
a majority. Yeah, I mean, you got to work with
That's
other
right.
people.
That's right.
So Dwayne asked one follow up: how will your proposed deep state reduction concretely reduce the national debt? So I'm not sure if.
Well, here's what happens.
Without digging in the numbers, you can say that
you end the funding of the agencies, Dwayne.
Okay.
And when you end the funding of the agency, you take the money and you put it in the national debt. When you end the funding of the agency, you're in the funding of the employees. You're ending the undesignated monies that they've got sitting out there ready to spend. Mm-hmm. And so that's how it will work. It's like if you got a credit card and you're subscribing to all kinds of magazines and websites and all this kind of stuff. Well, you just cut the subscriptions and you put the money back in the bank. That's the way it will work.
I think there's an app for that.
Yeah, there is. Or let's pretend that you shut down the government and don't give funding. Yeah. Just these people go to work and they just don't get paid, or they quit.
We've just gone so far away from necessity needing the federal government.
I'm a constitutionalist.
It's bloated so
That's
much.
Exactly right. I'm a constitutionalist.
I'm not saying that we shouldn't have certain agencies.
I am saying that we should not have most agencies.
Agreed.
Absolutely. The whole idea of federalism. And when you look at the Constitution, 7 articles, 27 amendments, the first 3 articles establish the national government. Article 1 establishes the Congress. We're supposed to be a congressionally driven government. Mm-hmm. But Congress, the Democrat Congresses over 4 historical periods have abdicated everything. You go back first to Woodrow Wilson and the establishment of the 16th Amendment for the income tax, the first Income Tax Act, the Federal Reserve Act, and all this junk about the world being made safe for democracy, which we're not. Then you have FDR. This is where the deep state started to explode during the New Deal. Mm-hmm. And then along comes Lyndon Johnson with the Great Society and the New Deal on steroids. And the fourth takeover by the Democrats is Obamacare, when they just came in and took control. And they just exploded the size of the government and increased the size of the government. It used to be that Virginia was a Republican state. Mm-hmm. Virginia's flipped because of the bureaucrats that have moved into Fairfax County.
I think they're regretting that about 6 months in at this point.
Well, you got to be careful who you vote for. That's the point.
Yeah. Well, I just saw Mayor Mamdani today saying they're going to raise property taxes 20%. For that, what is it? The warmth of socialism.
Look,
that he said.
Not only should that guy not be allowed to run for office, he should never have been allowed in the United States. And I'm the only U.S. Senate candidate in the nation calling for an end to Sharia immigration into the United States. Because you see, the problem hasn't just been illegal immigration. The Democrats abused us with illegal immigration. 4 years, they bring in every Tom, Dick, and Harry. They want us to take a jab. They bring them on in without the jab, bringing in all kinds of, tuberculosis and everything into the country. And we have these sleeper cells that are here. We have major sex trafficking rings and drug trafficking rings. We lost more Americans in 1 year to fentanyl than 10 years of the Vietnam War. But that's illegal immigration. But legal immigration has got to be tightened up on too. Look what you've got in Minnesota, and look what you've got in Michigan.
So I agree with you on the legal immigration needs to be tightened up, but this is 2026. Surely we can streamline some processes with maybe technology or something so that the legal immigrants have a chance to get through the system. So, and I'm not saying that we don't need to be more conscious of who's coming in, but when you hear about Mexican nationals that have tried to go through the process and it takes like however many years, it shouldn't be that way these days.
You're talking about a separate issue. Now, we're a nation built upon immigrants,
right?
But we do have to be careful about who we allow to immigrate. And if you're coming in from a Sharia country, first of all, I would stop that. We ought to stop that, and the exception should be religious persecution of Christians and Jews from places like Ethiopia and South Sudan, places like that. That's what needs to happen, because those nations are embracing a philosophy that is at war with the United States Constitution, which Laura embraces, and so do I. It's at war with our system. So, but what you're saying is different, and I agree. The process should be streamlined.
I want you to close it up, but I also, for the people that could benefit our economy, benefit our society with bringing their culture and things here, make it so that they can get through legally instead of being overstaying visas and stuff like that.
The first question is, are we bringing someone in who is absolutely committed to this constitutional republic? I don't.
They have to assimilate.
Yeah.
Period. End of story. I don't want your nothing. I don't want to you, just like I don't want the Democrats to move a Republican state and bring your policies with you. If you want to, there's a reason you're leaving your country.
Yeah.
To come to a better country, then come and assimilate to the way that we are, or go back to your country and continue to live like you're doing. Don't bring that crap here.
And generally speaking, folks who have immigrated here from communist countries tend to get it faster.
Oh yeah.
I can speak a little Russian with a redneck accent.
Okay.
That's Russian with a redneck. I can speak a little Russian. So, I had actually a number of Russian clients who had come here. Many of them were Christians. And this was like during the Obama years, they say, we leave the Soviet Union to escape communism, and it's following us here. That they see that.
Yeah, it's catching up.
The Cubans, the folks from the Eastern Bloc who have escaped these tyrannical regimes are coming for the right reasons. And sometimes these first immigrants make the best Americans. But if you're coming from, this poor young lady who was murdered, this National Guardsman from West Virginia, she was murdered by an Afghani that Biden just let in.
Yeah.
He
was an interpreter or something with our military.
Whatever it was.
But he was cleared to work with the guys, but he wasn't cleared to get in the country. But anyway.
But you see, that's an example, and I've got a problem. The philosophical base of folks like that, you can't trust it, and they certainly are not in line. Like Laura said, you've got to assimilate. They're not coming to assimilate.
Look, if your country's trading on the year 800 philosophy, then I don't think I want you in the 2026 society here.
I'm with you, Peter.
But saying what you said about leaving the tyrannical, even my own father left Greece in '68.
You're right.
Because military junta and
there you go.
Socialism.
And
I remember him watching Fox or something when I think it was probably 20 years ago with the Mexicans trying to change the national anthem to be in Spanish.
Yeah.
And my dad just he never says much.
Right.
But just kind of shaking his head. He's like, you don't do that.
Your dad is an example.
But at the same time, we do have territories that speak Spanish.
We do.
So we don't want to alienate the Spanish-speaking territories.
I'm talking about changing it, not just converting it to Spanish. I'm talking about changing it.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the issue. Okay. Anyway, but my father's very kind of calm and cool, collected, and he never really says much. But when he looks at the TV and says, well, not good.
No, and your dad is exactly the type of immigrant who's become an American citizen that I met. He came here because the military junta in Greece and because of the socialist takedown. And so, again, those folks have made the best citizens in my judgment. And that's the way we need to model our immigration. And, we need to model, are you going to assimilate, as Laura says, and can you do something to help the United States? The ideal model was the Saturn rocket program, which was built on German scientists who had turned on Hitler, and they had these V2 scientists had a skill that Americans did not have at the time. And it was a match made in heaven to a large degree. And that's what we ought to be building. That's the ideal model of what legal immigration should be.
It's funny because I say, think about it like your house. You have a house that's really, really big, and it can feed and house 500 people.
Yeah.
Now, do you want to bring in the dirt bag that never washes, that leaves his clothes everywhere, that doesn't clean up his kitchen? Or do you want to bring the person that can do the plumbing so that he can help maintain the house?
Yeah.
Do you want to bring in the guy that does the whatever? You're bringing in people that want to assimilate and live together, not people that want to come in and destroy everything that you've built. And that's what our country is. It's a big house.
We want to be homogenous. We don't want to be a salad bowl with different ingredients.
When I get elected, I want Laura on the immigration advisory team. I want you there. You got the right idea.
Okay. Can I be on some Doge thing? Because I really think I'd be good at deciding stuff like that.
All right. I like that.
I am
just put in a word
my
for me.
father
Okay?
became a U.S. citizen.
Yeah.
I am a first generation American citizen. So to me, it's common sense.
Yeah.
But
So we know where you stand on immigration. We know definitely we are for the Secretary of War that you want strong leadership.
Yeah.
Close the borders. What else? Fiscal discipline.
Well, one of the things, and I've taken a strong stand on medical freedom.
Okay.
You may know my background, maybe you don't. When the whole COVID scam started, and I call it a scam because so much of it was a scam. I was very vocal in opposition.
It was racist to say China virus.
Of course it was.
And then Trump says China because it comes from China.
Of course. Well, I got into some public debates with a guy named Jerry Valancourt, the late Jerry Valancourt, who was the play-by-play announcer of the Charlotte Hornets.
Okay.
And Jerry was pro-vax and I was pro-freedom, and Jerry was pro-mask and I was pro-freedom. We debated, and because of that, I wound up actually getting involved in a number of legal cases, representing a number of Christians before the EEOC who did not want to take the jab because of DNA fingerprints leading back to aborted babies. But we also had a major lawsuit on behalf of 78 or so employees of the Savannah River Nuclear the Savannah River Nuclear Plant. Some folks in Fayetteville know that we build nuclear materials there. It's a big, huge plant. And the Biden administration told the Savannah River Nuclear Solutions, the main private employer, either you force your people to take the jab or we're going to cut the Department of Energy's money.
Right.
So they came to me, and there were 78 of them, mostly nuclear engineers. We sued them first in federal court in Columbia, South Carolina. The Democrat judge ruled against us, Michelle Childs, who was one of Biden's 3 quote unquote women of color for the Supreme Court. She's now in the Court of Appeals in D.C. We sued on the theory that they were violating South Carolina's mandate against the unlawful practice of medicine, which is a good argument, by the way. But it was already baked in the oven when we filed the suit. Went to the Fourth Circuit, and Biden backed down. We saved those jobs, but the point I'll make, and I'll make it here because I think it's worth making, during the discovery on that lawsuit, we pulled the government's own VAERS data. VAERS, maybe you all are familiar with it. It's the Vaccine Adverse Reaction System.
Yes.
It's used by the federal government for years to measure adverse reactions to vaccines. And the government has called it the gold standard, the FDA, the gold standard. If there was 1 or 2 adverse reactions for any vaccine, DTaP, German measles, whatever, they would shut the entire vaccine program down all over the country until they got that squared away. Until COVID. Now, listen, here's what I want you to know. From the government's own numbers, in a 10-month period, from January until October of 2021, that's a 10-month period, there were more deaths, DEATHS, reported from these 3 experimental COVID jams. Now, hear this, Peter and Laura, than from every other vaccine combined over 30 years.
Right.
Okay? And the cesspool of a Democrat corrupt government did not make that information aware to our people, and their corrupt media lackeys hid that also. And if you said something, they said conspiracy theory, or they would totally change. After they defended the VAERS system for 30 years, then they started saying, well,
it's not as
perfect.
good.
Yeah, they started changing the tune.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to battle for vaccine. I'm going to battle for medical freedom.
Yeah.
And, I've worked some with a lot of folks involved in this, but I'm going to propose what I call a vaccination and mass protection act to basically make it illegal for any private employer or governmental entity or anyone to force vaccinations on people. That can't happen. Well, and it will include not only vaccinations, but the World Economic Forum is talking about microchip insertions as well if the dollar fails. We got to get out ahead of that. I will battle for that. My opponent, Mike Watley, by the way, in the beginning of COVID, and I've got the video on this if anybody wants to see it, went to the headquarters of the North Carolina Republican Party and said, I'm going to take the jab. You can talk to your lawyer. He didn't say jab. He said vaccine. I'm being sarcastic. But he said, this is not a matter of politics. It's a matter of science. And he pushed the jab. And listen, you got to say, hey, where was your candidate when the wind started blowing hot? Are you blowing with the wind and going with everybody else? You're standing against it. Watley pushed it. We opposed it. And I will fight for that. Okay. So that's another major thing. And that's a hot button around the state. When we start talking medical freedom, people get a bit wound up about it. It's still
I definitely don't think we're going to allow the government to do anything close to what we allowed in COVID again.
Well, maybe not anytime.
Not right now.
Not anytime soon.
But they have a way. If you think about it, if you were born, okay, so we're in the 60s. No bras, woohoo, yeah. And think if the government, I mean, honestly, it was the woman freedom. We're going to take off our bras.
Feminism.
Now think about if they told you in the 60s, you're from driving down the road, you're sitting in the back of a pickup truck. If they said from now on, you're going to put your seatbelts on and you're going to wear your seatbelts every single day, everybody would have been up in arms. Yeah, right. But little by little, law by law, they take away your freedom until you don't even realize you're that frog in the pot.
Frog in the frying pan. You got it, Laura.
Not jumping out. So, I mean, and look at it. We went from you have to wear a mask. You have to wear a mask. No, and they don't want IDs for voters.
Yeah.
But you know what? I want you as an ICE agent to take off your mask and show me your ID.
Right.
So as an agent, I have to show you my ID, but you can not have an ID to vote.
Oh, yeah.
So as an agent that you're doxing me and my family, I have to not have my mask on.
I cannot wait until the people that are saying that, especially the elected officials, are indicted federally.
I hope so.
For things. And
that's what I'd like to see. That's the frustrating part. I'm a nerd.
Yeah, right.
Everybody knows that. I watch C-SPAN for fun, and I watch all of these hearings, and they talk about all this stuff that has happened or whatever. Who's in jail?
Too many hearings, not enough action.
Yeah, that's exactly
the prosecution?
Right. Absolutely.
Where are the prosecutions? That's what I want to see. When people start going to jail,
right.
I'm going to be a happy camper because I'm tired of all of this.
And judicial tyranny and political prosecutions, that's been another hot button item for me. And I've been calling for the prosecution of Jack Smith, Letitia James, Fannie Willis, Alvin Bragg, Kimberly Gardner, who is the Soros prosecutor that went after the McCloskeys, who were simply holding their gun in front of their house.
Oh yeah.
These prosecutors need to be prosecuted.
Well, and
they did actually. Not that she did wave her gun.
Yeah.
It was a scary situation. I'm not saying anything. They went to the extreme, but I will say it is against the law to wave your gun at people.
Yeah.
Just
it's not against the law to answer the door when somebody pounds on it at 8:00 at night. And it turns out to be the little kid from MetroNet trying to get a.
Now I will say I have answered my door with my shotgun before, and I was out in my yard the other night because we have a coyote with my shotgun. But
little Annie Oakley over here.
Yes, you can't wave your gun at people. It's just
you're not allowed to. Yeah. They
unless you're threat of bodily harm.
Well, that's what you're saying. About wanting to prosecute these people. Lawfare was brought against Donald Trump.
Yeah, sure.
Hands down.
Right.
I have a business degree. Even I have enough law education with the business law I had to know you don't legislate from the bench.
And
that's what these people are doing.
Not one single prosecution brought against President Trump, or he was former President Trump when this prosecution started, had any legal or constitutional footing at all. Not one.
Right.
If you go to Florida, for example, they're trying to prosecute president for a violation of the National Security Act because he had his records.
Right.
Well, first off, the Presidential Records Act specifically uses the phrase former presidents and gives former presidents unlimited access to their presidential records and does not prohibit the former president from having access to classified presidential records. Whereas Biden had records from when he was vice president, and Hillary had records when she was Secretary of State, and that is a violation.
I don't think President Trump had them in his Corvette in the garage unsecured. Probably, I think they were probably at least locked up.
Let me correct myself. I meant to say the Espionage Act earlier, but you know, but they pushed that. There was not one legitimate prosecution, and every one of these political prosecutions was a bastardization of the Constitution. And it wasn't just against Trump; they were going against. There were, you remember maybe the cartoonist Douglas Mackey, 2016. In 2016, Douglas Mackey, a cartoonist, did a cartoon lampooning Hillary Clinton voters. 5 years later, in 2021, the corrupt Biden Justice Department prosecutes Douglas Mackey for a cartoon.
Election interference?
Yes, exactly. That was the fabricated charge. When that cartoon was absolutely protected by the First Amendment. Now that case is over. That's what they were doing. They were going after pro-life fathers after the Dobbs decision. You know, it just goes on and on.
Look, you know, being an attorney, you know, you've got the Bar Association. To me, I don't understand how it can get through professional standards enough to allow to encourage this or say, oh yeah, it's okay. I mean, you're sworn to follow the Constitution.
Listen, most of the Democrats who have taken a note to the Constitution in the United States Congress, I'll say, is a joke. And listen, I lecture on the Constitution. We've got a crisis on constitutional ignorance, and sometimes I'll throw out an icebreaker just when I start the lecture. What are the 5 fundamental rights of the First Amendment? And I've thrown that question to lawyer buddies. I can tell you, like 90% cannot get that.
She did it to me, and I didn't
she
get it
tried
either.
that to you?
Yeah, she did. Yeah.
But
she challenges me on a regular
that's good.
basis.
But here's the point. I'm telling you, I've taken 2 bar exams and passed them by the grace of God, proving anybody as dumb as me can pass a bar exam. Anybody can. All right. But here's the point. They test on constitutional law for the bar exam. I never read the Constitution in law school. All you do is you read a bunch of cases from the Supreme Court.
That reference.
That's like going to seminary and reading a bunch of sermons and never reading the Bible. But the 5 fundamental rights of the First Amendment should be as axiomatic as eeny, meeny, miny, mo. We ought to teach the Constitution from K to 12. We don't know who we are.
Yeah.
And so you're talking about people swearing to the Constitution. They don't know the Constitution.
The Department of Education for the last 50 years made sure we didn't know who we are.
That's exactly
And it was
right.
part of Democrat long-term planning to ruin.
Well,
you know, Lyndon Johnson brought the Great Society and says, if I give them loaves and fishes, they'll vote for me for 200 years.
I'll trace it back to 1913 with Woodrow Wilson and the world must be made safe for democracy.
Sure.
When the author of the Constitution, James Madison, the guy that wrote, the principal author, said that democracy is the most vile, V-I-L-E, form of government. And Ben Franklin had my favorite when he said democracy is like, you know, 2 wolves and a lamb meeting at high noon and voting on what they're going to have for lunch.
I like that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
But see, we you know, Solomon said that without a vision, the people perish. We don't have a vision of who we are.
Yeah.
And so they're trashing the Constitution in part because 1, nobody knows about it. 2, nobody cares. And the Democrats don't want the Constitution because, see, the Constitution really, in many ways, is a great restraining device against excessive governmental power. But they want to increase governmental power. You got to get rid of the Constitution so that you have carte blanche authority to increase the power.
That is the swamp. People don't understand when President Trump says, drain the swamp, drain the swamp. We've hired and created these agencies under the executive branch to basically have rules and regulations written that really do infringe on our rights.
But here's the thing. No one president can drain the swamp. The United States Congress, which created the swamp, has to drain it.
They have to do it.
And so we got to have leadership in the Congress that's willing to speak up. And like I say, I can't promise results, but I can sure as heck promise that I'm going to raise holy hell if it costs me my life. I will do that. We have got to do that. I will not go to the Senate and bow down to the ghost of Mitch McConnell or do what John Thune tells me simply because it's Republican leadership. We got a problem. Listen, do you realize how many U.S. attorneys and federal judges have not been appointed yet? There are 195, ambassadorships, and something like 128 have not been filled. We don't have a U.S. ambassador in Russia, Germany, China, Ukraine.
Just let Trump do it right now.
But listen, when the Congress went home for Christmas, Trump could have done that through pocket veto.
Yeah, right.
But Thune worked against him.
So Mr. Brown, I'm not sure if you're going to be a strong leader or not. I haven't been able to tell that so far. So I do appreciate you coming on and accommodating our schedule. And I know where to next, sir. Where are you going today?
Well, we're headed to, let's see, we're going to Columbus. We'll wind up in Columbus County today before the day's over with. And we love Cumberland County, though. I can't wait to come back again. Love the 82nd. Love the Army, even though I'm a Navy guy.
And I will say, how do we get a hold of, if you don't have money, we want your time. So if you want to donate to brownfornc.com.
Right.
And like I said, if you don't have money, that's okay. We need your time too. So if you'll go out to the polls, work an hour or two, or just work the polls by bringing water, fruit, or whatever for those people that are working. Every little bit helps.
If you're in Cumberland County especially, see me or Laura, and we got a place for you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
It's been an honor. We love you both. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. And with that, we are the Cabinet, and we'll be back Monday at 6 p.m. See y'all.